Welcome back. You're watching Commodity Champions. The next time you decide to buy a samosa, jalebi or chips in a government hospital or a government institution, you may experience feeling of guilt. The Health Ministry has issued an advisory to all government ministries, departments, hospitals and public institutions to display boards with warnings on the oil and sugar content in these commonly consumed snacks. Projections suggest that by 2050, more than 45 crore Indians could be overweight or obese. The ministry's advisory aims to make people aware about the health risks due to excess consumption of oil and sugar, as well as to combat obesity. This could be part of broader awareness campaign that is being linked onto tobacco warnings or cigarette packets. Joining us now to discuss the implication of Health Ministry's move is Sumit Gupta. He's CEO at Wasida Global Commodities. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for joining in. Clearly, the consumer angle seems to be very, very strong on this. But I want to talk to you about the industry angle on this. We do understand that for the last many years, we've seen population growth and we've seen consumption growth as well, as India has been creating more wealth, improving their standard of living. And that's exactly where this unhealthy food creeps in.
First, good afternoon, Manisha, and thank you very much. It's a very important topic because on one side, it makes you question about your food habits, and second side, you think about what can be the implication for the industry. So, especially, let's look at how it's going to, as you have mentioned, about the income part. As India is going to become richer and wealthier, and more female population is going to come into workforce. One thing is for sure, there'll be more processed food and there'll be more people who will be eating food outside. And whenever this combination comes in, you have more intake of oil, sugar, and salt in your food. And going by that, I think sunlight, is the best disinfectant, and it is important for people to know that what they're consuming. Okay, and from that point of view, this advisory is good. And but what is more important that it should not become an Inspector Raj, or it should not become a threat for the other industry or the small Hokera segment of people, that it can be used as a tool to make it difficult for them. But if you ask me about specifically about this advisory, I think it is good in the long run.
I understand that. How would you look at the industry numbers then? Because we've seen growth in demand in the recent many years. As you also mentioned, that is because people are eating better, people are eating more, and people are eating out more. And that is where you have the major oil and sugar content coming in. I mean, as you said, advisory is great, but is it going to have a lot of impact on ground?
In terms of, let's look at the demand side of it. India is still a low-income country, though we are a fourth largest economy in the world. We are 140th on the per capita income. And as we will move from low-income country to middle-income country, which is still we'll have to make $10,000 per person per capita more. And when we are going to make that much money, where we are going to spend it first, we are going to spend it, as you have mentioned, on eating out more, eating out healthy, and eating out what we know. And that is where the pendulum will shift from government, where today government decides what people are going to eat, to a place where people will decide what they are going to eat. And that is where, personally, if you ask me, I don't see any impact of this circular on the increasing consumption, number one, both in veg oil or sugar, because these two products consumption is going to continuously increase, because there is a big disparity between the consumption between the urban India and rural India. Though we look at the per capita numbers, then we put all regions into one. But when you divide this into urban, rural, north, south, then there are big disparities. And the consumption in rural/East India is going to continuously increase over the years.
Is there a number that you're willing to put there, Sumit? And I get your point absolutely, that it's not urban India. Urban India demand perhaps may just plateau, but it is the rural India demand that would continue to grow.
And in terms of demand, if you look at the global numbers today, and let's compare it against the middle income countries, per capita consumption of sugar, if I'm not wrong, in India is around 20 kg per person per annum. And average in the middle income countries is around 35 to 36 kgs. And in vegetable oil, similarly, we are around 60% on the median consumption against the middle income countries. So if you look at the demand numbers in terms of what is ahead of us because of the growing income, growing population, and reducing rural and urban disparity, I believe sugar consumption should grow at least at a factor of 1.5 to 1%, 8% per annum, and same growth rate should be witnessed in the vegetable oils. Over and above, let's come in from the government point of view. A country cannot become wealthy till the time its population is healthy. And we have sizable population with diabetes, around 100 million people, if I'm not wrong, and 20% of the urban and 10% of the population in the rural India. So that spread is also of a concern. And that is where, if I have to hold my view, I will say it is good for the industry also, because overall the net consumption is not going to change, but the consequence of the consumption will change. How we consume it will change.
Well, that sounds really interesting. And this is just initial numbers coming in. As we go ahead, we'll know those numbers as well, whether or not we have seen that impact on ground. But thank you so much, Sumit, for being with us. Let's dwell slightly deeper in case of sugar. And we have Rahil Sheikh, founder and managing director at Mere Commodities. Rahil, it's good. It's perhaps positive for consumers. We have really bad numbers when it comes to obesity, overweight, and diabetes, etc. But what does this really mean, this advisory mean for industry as per se?
Manisha, last 1 week or 10 days after the Mann Ki Baat, this has been the debate across the country, I think. I mean, including your own house where you have to justify the consumption of sugar and edible oil. So I think personally from my take, I think on a very short-term basis, we don't see any changes happening because the habits of eating does not change on overnight basis. I mean, we will continue to consume what we were consuming. Then there is, as my other colleague mentioned, that the disparity between India, urban India and rural India, that will continue. So I personally don't see a very short-term issues into it. I think on a longer term, we probably will have to see how our new generation look at it. I mean, the charts and displaying of things which are bad for health over a period of time, if that happens to change the mindset of how we consume food, then it will be a different aspect. But I think displaying a chocolate on a board in school, probably that chocolate will be taken off in the morning. So I think that the children needs to take this advisory of our Prime Minister over a period of years before we could see the changes. And adding India is all over adding the population. I think we are going to plateau on our population around 2071, 72. So until that 500,000 additional of people will come in and consume. So I think on sugar front, we are at 19 kilos per capita in the world today. If you look at Europe, it's about 27, US at about 29, Brazil at about 55. Most of these countries already have sugar tax, labeling to whatever they could. I mean, we can't compare ourselves to Africa, who's at 10 kilo per capita, but I think India is around 19. I think we'll continue to sort of have this range and adding the populations. I think we should continue to grow at 500,000 ton until the young generation decides that they are really off the sugar for whatever reason they would like to.
Rahil, I was talking to somebody in the industry and they said there are 17 substitutes today, as of now today, to sugar in sense of sweeteners, starting from date syrup to, I mean, there are various varieties there. You think the number that you're giving me, 500,000 ton per year of a consumption increase, will that stand the test of time in the next decade as well? Or do you think even before that, we could be looking at these substitutes more seriously?
I mean, look at alternative, out of 17 alternatives, the two major alternatives are jaggeries and khansari, which are imminent to sugar. I mean, leave aside the Diet Coke and all those which also have displayed now that there could be some other element due to consumption of those chemical-based or natural-based alternative sweeteners. Out of these two, I mean, how many of us have changed our habit of eating a jaggery-based mithai or a jaggery-based chai or things, as I mentioned, that our habits are not going to change in 10 days' time. Probably as the generation will pass by, I think we will pass on. I mean, we have passed on food
I get
cultures.
that.
We
So
have
Rahil,
passed on
when you say
everything earlier.
500,000 tons per annum of an increase, how long have we seen 500,000 tons per annum of an increase in India? Has this been?
I have seen it from 30 years now.
So for 30 years, every year we've been adding.
Except for the COVID years when we saw it dip. 1994, I remember we were consuming about 9 to 10 million tons. And in 30 years' time, we are at 30 million tons. So we have added 20 million tons. So I mean, there's science behind when I said 500,000 tons, because it's much easier to talk that those 500,000 tons as a number. We are adding population as well. I mean, if you know, by sheer number, we may be highest in diabetic, but we are 1.545 billion people. So on any numbers will be on the highest. But I think today when you hit the gym and you hit better places, you see a lot of people to be fit, rather than talking about not just consuming sugar and edible oil. You see them for 1 hour on the treadmill and in the gym. I think that should be also the advisory, because it's important that by just consuming the right amount of food, you can avoid a lot of things. But there are alternative like exercises to be fit, and that should also be a thought process which should be continuously fed into population. Just consuming sugar and edible oil will not change these impacts.
Absolutely, Rahil. That is something that everybody and the industry and at all sides have been saying, really, because it's not just about one or two factors. It really is a whole host of factors that change a thing. But I'm just coming back again on the 0.5 million tons here. This year is expected to be lower, and with the kind of numbers that we're looking at, and if this advisory actually works, are we looking at a slower growth, or do you think it's going to be sustaining, stable as 500,000?
I mean, you have to calculate things by basis your surrounding. I mean, unless you go deep down and do the survey of the entire industry. I mean, when I look through the things, a labor who takes up about 4 cups of tea is not going to make it 3 just because sugar is bad for him.
I take that. But Rahil, is the industry at all worried, concerned? I mean, as you said, these things don't change overnight or over a season or over a year for that matter, perhaps. From the side of industry, you don't think this is going to impact? Nothing changes, nothing seems to be changing as of now.
On short term, I don't see any changes, because we consumed 28.1 last year after smugglings and after Khansari export and all. This year, we are on course to consume about 28.5 to 28.6. The dispatch number always get confused with consumption number. And I think if you look at all the pundits who are giving the number for next year, we are talking about 29.1 to 29.2. So I think until this becomes a daily YouTube and a short video which keeps feeding you, I mean, until then, I don't see an issue. But if my Facebook and my Instagram hits me 10 times a day, then I probably will tell you that I've stopped consuming sugar.
All right, that is what it needs to work on then. Rahil, thank you so much for joining in. And I get your point that even as the advisory is good in holistic nature there, but take a look at what the other countries are doing. We're at 19, Europe is at 27, US at 29, Brazil 55. So those numbers really need to be taken into consideration as well. But thank you as always for joining in and making sense of this. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Commodity Champions. Thank you for watching.